what are the price performances of 2025 launches to make better decisions for 2026. Want to find out more? You've got to watch this. Now in today's video, we're going to go through 4 selected projects, and these projects are namely Penrith, Skye, Holland, Faber Residence, and the Sand. While we'll be going through the general specs and the sale performance of this project, right, this is not a project introduction video. It's more of an overview around that for you to get quick information and to recap what has happened. And the reason I chose these projects, right, is because of its recency, and also they have a good mix from CCR, RCR to OCR. They have near school, not so near school, near MRT, not so near MRT. Now at this point of video, if you like what you see, don't forget to give a like and subscribe so that this will help me to produce more of such quality content for you. Alright, so Penrith is a 462 unit development, somewhat a medium size. Okay, land size is around 102,000 square feet. With a gross plot ratio of 4.2, the total GFA, the gross floor area, how much space they can use to build units, amounts to about total of 430,000. We simply take 102,000 times 4.2, you get around the 430,000. Now, after the legal costs, marketing costs, and miscellaneous, etc., the break-even cost for this project adds up to around 2026 per square foot per plot ratio, adding a conservative 20% margin for developer to profit. The sale price was expected to start around 2431 PSF. This being said, on launch day, we have a low, average, and high PSF of 2347 PSF, 2794 PSF, and 3087 PSF. Now, you might think that the highest PSF is for the smaller unit, right? Because you buy small, lesser square footage, and the slower PSF is for the larger unit, right? But in this case, actually the 3087 PSF, after some research work, right, is actually not for a very small unit. Instead, it's actually for a 1173 square feet unit, which given in today's new launch market, right, is towards the slightly bigger side. Okay, next, in terms of buyer profile, we have about 91.5% of the buyers who bought being Singaporeans, and this is a good thing because when Singaporeans buy, you got majority Singaporean holding, right? In a way, you can say it's more stable. If let's say anything, you wouldn't expect like, oh, I'm gonna sell a property and just go back overseas to my country to go and stay, because Singaporeans stay where? In Singapore. And therefore, especially when you look at the resale market, right, when you buy into such a project with a high Singaporean holding, you know that you can expect a relatively more stable project. Next, PR have about 8.1% total collective fee, meaning to say out of all the units that were sold, right, about 36 of the buyers, right, actually are PRs. And as you know, PRs have to pay 5% ABSD. What does this tell us about their behavior? It tells us that either these PRs are actually very optimistic about getting citizenship, and therefore they just buy with the hopes of wanting to settle down in the future for the longer term in Singapore, whether for themselves or their offspring, or they simply see 5% as an entry fee to join in the property investment game. Because you buy, let's say once again, a $2 million property, ABSD of 5% is an additional 100,000. If they buy with the thoughts of investment, to them it is simply like, okay, it's a sooner or later time that I'll get my 5% back. Maybe people hold for 4 years, I hold for 6 years. So this can suggest a very confident PR market. And lastly, foreigner count, we have 0.4%. As you know, I just now mentioned foreigners have to pay 60% ABSD. If they buy at 2 million, they pay 1.2 million in ABSD. You might be wondering why some Singaporeans are hesitating to buy property. Remember, speed of implementation. If you want to buy something, buy property, enter early. Don't keep think, because the moment you think 2-3 years past already, people make money, you haven't made money. Next, we move on to buyer profile based on their addresses. Now, for Penrith, right, about 24.2% of buyers are from HDBs, and about 75.8% of buyers, right, stay in a condo. Now, HDB appearance today, right, still make up an essential pool of buyers who buy into private. And if you are a private owner, right, let's say you want to look at somewhere, any new launch or resale, right, one of the important things that you want to look at is to buy near HDB cluster. This being said, not all HDB cluster can afford condo. Okay, you have to buy near the targeted HDB locations, right, to actually help you make a safe exit when you want to exit your project in the future to collect your profits. So also, as you notice, right, majority of the buyers are actually from HDB or private, right? Private are actually more wealthier. You want to position yourself in HDB or private? Ultimately, it's all about positioning. If you position yourself the longer in HDB, private prices are likely just going to price you out. And in due time, you probably cannot even afford or buy any private property anymore. And with this, right, I will reference one article over here for you. I believe this will be helpful for you. Okay, next, right, for average price of Penrith, many people are thinking, oh, Penrith 2794 PSF average price, is it worth it or not? Actually, if you look around, right, Penrith is one of, if not probably the last land plot that is available that is at this distance to the MRT. And when we compare, right, there's other resale projects around, like the Queen's Peak, opposite we have Sterling Residence, or even nearer to MRT we have Commonwealth Towers. So you might think that 2794 PSF, is it a worth it entry for Penrith? Then I want to invite you to take a look at Commonwealth Tower. Now, Commonwealth Tower, right, being situated next to MRT, has already transacted 2,400 PSF since 2024. In 2025, we have additional occurrence of 2,400 PSF and finally hit a record price of 2,500 plus PSF for a unit over here. It makes Penrith really seriously palatable at just 27 plus PSF, and therefore is the reason why I believe people buy. So if you ask me whether Penrith is expensive in this regard, right, actually we're expensive, man. Nearby old property a couple years ago already selling 2.5, you buy at 2.7 average, so you could be buying at lower also. And on top of the cheaper borrowing costs during this period, right, with higher income and affordability supporting the property market, right, units move. Okay, next, Skye at Holland. Skye at Holland now. Skye at Holland is a 666 unit development. Now, some people call it the devil's number because 666. Will you buy? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, the size of this project, right, can already be considered a big development, past 500. Okay, not yet mega, where we are typically looking at about 1,000 units. Now, land size is around 133,000 square feet and GFA is around 626,000 square feet. Its land was gotten by way of GLS at a land cost of about 1,285 PSF PPR per square foot per plot ratio. After legal costs, marketing, miscellaneous, etc., the break-even cost adds up to around 2,203 PSF. Now, adding a 20% conservative margin once again, the sale price is expected to start from around 2,006 PSF. Of course, fast forward launch day, 2,598 PSF at the lowest PSF, average PSF 2,943, and the highest PSF at 3,308 PSF. Once again, you might think that the highest PSF, 3,308 PSF, is actually for 1 or 2 beta, right? But then actually no, like it's for a 1,765 square feet unit. Now, if you think 3,000 PSF is expensive, the market has already passed 3,000 PSF. And just look at the prices that consumers are willing to pay and can afford for in today's market. But one of the triggers for this is that because the property just next door, One Holland Village, has had a transaction right before the new launch, which went for around 3,780 just next door. Does 3,003 look cheap to you? Already transacted. Not you think might transact. Already transacted. Is 3,300 PSF cheap for brand new launch right next door and near MRT. And in terms of the buyer profile for citizen, 86.7% Singaporeans, still majority Singaporean holding, about 12% are PRs and about 1.4% are foreigners. This being said, while prices are higher than Penrith, there are more percentages of PR and foreigners buying, and they have to pay ABSD whether 5% or 60%. So the question we want to ask is, why are they paying for this project despite it being a higher price? And we want to really also ask ourselves, when you buy the project, right, high price, does higher price new launch still make sense for you? You might be thinking, oh, resale older, what, cheaper, why are you going to buy a new launch? Resale older, cheaper and bigger. But cheaper, they're cheap for a reason. High price doesn't mean it's good. So this is a very clear example of value is what you get, price is what you pay. When buying property, right, you have to really separate the price point and the value. Tabulate your entry price and the walkaway price. Once the asking price crosses your walkaway price, right, don't be afraid to walk away. Just give it a miss, wait for something else better to come. And when it comes to walkaway price, right, later on you'll see in one of the projects called the Sand, 61% profit margin above the break-even cost. Now HDB upgraders 20.1%, 79.9% are from private addresses. Now, Penrith was RCR, Skye and Holland was CCR. I should have put Skye and Holland first because CCR then RCR. But never mind, we're going on to our third project, Faber Residence, and this is OCR. Now, Faber Residence on launch day sold how much? 86%. Okay, now, one of many's favorite because of its low entry price. Now, Faber Residence comprised of 399 units, still a pretty good size development. Land size is about 277,000 square feet, and with a gross plot ratio of 1.4, its GFA adds up to around 388,000 square feet. Now, you might see that land size is a bit bigger compared to Penrith and Skye Holland. But why is the GFA lower? Okay, partly, right, is also to do with the 5-story limit set upon this land. And this is one thing I like about Singapore properties. When the government launched something, right, they'll actually take into consideration the residents around the area. They will think of things whether would it cost these amenities to the residents in the area around, because these amenities can hurt property values. So when you have all this thoughtful consideration, right, in a way you can say you're buying into something safer. Imagine around it's landed. Okay, next door we have waterfront at Faber. Then we have Faber Crest. All are actually low rises. There's no high rise unless you go across the road to where Whistler Grand, Twin View and Park Riviera is. But on this other side, on top here, it's all low rise. So if you suddenly build a high rise, right, and all is low rise, macam the condo can look into the landed house already. Then the landed house owner, okay, now for Faber Residence, right, the land cost was sold at a delicious $900 PSF PPR. Right, if you notice, there's no MRT there now. Of course, in future, you have to cross from the Park Connector side to go to Jurong Town Hall MRT. But as of now, there's no MRT. But more importantly, it is within 1 km to Nan Hua Primary School. Singaporean parents will move for school. Okay, in terms of buyers demographic, 88.6% Singaporean, 11.4% PR, and this time around 0% are foreigners. Higher based on address type, right? From HDB, we have about 38%, private we have 62%. Now, if you notice the HDB buyers, right, are almost 40%, which is about twice that of Penrith and Skye Holland. The difference is that Penrith and Skye Holland are high entry price, Faber is low entry price. So this data actually suggests to us that, right, buyers from HDBs are actually looking for lower entry price. If you want to actually buy into a project that is targeted at HDB operators for your exit strategy, your entry price must be palatable for them to enter. If not, your condo, no point buying near HDB. Maybe they may not even be able to buy and help you to exit your property. Okay, overall for Faber residents, we have 1976 PSF as the lowest PSF transacted. Average PSF is around 2153 PSF, and the highest PSF is at 2298 PSF, with the highest PSF being for 861 square foot unit. All in all, right, just to share with you, the highest PSF transacted for Penrith at 3087 PSF is actually a good rough 52% higher than the break-even cost of 2026 PSF. And for Skye at Holland, the highest transacted PSF of 3308 is actually a good 50% deal on top of the break-even cost of 2203 PSF. And for Faber residents, the highest transacted price is actually around 36% higher than the break-even cost of 1682 PSF. Now, when I compare these three projects, right, you'll think that, oh, 52%, 50%, and then Faber only 36%, then 36% profit margin become very affordable, right? But actually, when you consider the launch price, right, you add probably 20 or 30%. So these projects are considered very well receiving. Okay, so lastly, I mentioned the fourth project, and this is the Sand. The Sand is situated at Upper Bukit Timah area. Now, when it was sold as a GLS, right, this land plot was known as De Souza Avenue. But the actual address is actually from Jalan Jurong Kecil, where the main road actually enters the development. So this project at the Sand, right, just to give an overview, is that on launch day, it performed 23%. It is neither in very close proximity to a very good school and neither in very close proximity to an MRT. It is somewhere in between of Hume MRT and Beauty World MRT. Its land was also gotten by way of GLS, 99 years project, a total unit of 347 at this project. Now, the lowest transacted PSF for this project is $2198 PSF. The average transacted for this project is at $2350 PSF, and the highest transacted PSF was at $2586 PSF. Now, the land size is about 207,000 square feet, and the GFA total is around 331,000 square feet. Now, let's recall a little bit. I want to bring your attention to Faber residence and OCR and the Sand here, which is an RCR. So OCR technically is cheaper than the RCR, right, Penrith. But the Sand, being an RCR also, and looking at the land price, right, the land price for the Sand is actually $841 PSF PPR. And this means it is actually bought at cheaper than Faber residence. Now, despite it being bought cheaper than Faber residence, it being an RCR, right, it has an RCR price tag effect. And therefore, the low PSF, average, and highest PSF transacted, as you might have already noticed, is higher than Faber residence, despite its land cost for the Sand, right, being cheaper than the land cost for Faber residence. Adding all the miscellaneous legal and marketing fees, right, the break-even cost stands at around 1602 PSF. This means to say that at the highest ESF transacted of $2586, the profit margin of the developer is actually 61%. Now, 61% profit margin is even higher than Penrith, the highest so far on our list, which is 52%. And this is one clear thing that when you want to buy into any project, right, of course, near MRT, near school is not always the main consideration. But when you buy a new launch, it's not near MRT, it's not very near school. Then what is the unique selling point? And it's selling at 23%, right? It still has an inventory of around 77% to sell out. If there's 77% to sell out and the developer in a couple years' time cannot sell out by the time whereby they'll be subject to paying ABSD, right? What will they do? Will they lower price to incentivize the sale of the units? And if should they lower the price, would the earlier buyers who bought into the Sand lose from this move? Now, of course, I'm not saying that they will definitely lower the price, but at a 61% profit margin, the developer surely has a lot of room to lower price to incentivize the movement of the units in his project. Now, so this is a roundup of the four projects, basically Penrith, Skye Holland, Faber, it being one from the RCR, CCR, and OCR, and of course the Sand. The reason I roped in the Sand is because its price performance is at 23%, and also it being an RCR, it has a very low land cost and a very high developer margin of 61% based on the highest PSF transacted. With this overview, I believe you have a clear picture and a feel of how the recent projects in 2025. Most importantly, this sets the foundation for analyzing 2026. With 2026, here are the number of all the projects that are coming up. Same like the recent projects that I showed you. Not all projects are set to sell out very well. And this is where it comes to my next video. I will be sharing my personal top picks for 2026. Why those are the projects that are highly likely the very well receiving ones, and also what is the walkaway price of each of these upcoming projects. Stay tuned for next upcoming video. I hope this video has actually helped you understand more. If you like this video and have benefited from it, give me a like and subscribe, show some love, and this will definitely help me to produce more such quality, informative content for you. Now this is Joshua Tan once again, and I'll see you around.